Hi, welcome back. This is Rachel from the book Mavens. Just wanting to give you a little May wrap up of what I read outside of our Mass versus Mass challenge. I did not revisit all of the series that we covered in our kind of monthly theme. I did revisit a couple of books here and there just to kind of refresh myself to be able to discuss them, but I did read a variety of other books this month, and so those are what I wanted to kind of chat with you about today. So the first set of books that I read were V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. So we have 3 books in this, obviously, trilogy. So we have A Gathering of Shadows, A Darker Shade of Magic, A Gathering of Shadows is the second book, and then A Conjuring of Light is the third book. So the basic premise for these books is that you have 4 Londons that are kind of in different worlds. And we have Kel, who has the magical ability to travel among these worlds and visit different Londons, different versions of London. They're not all set up like London as in the UK, except in one London, which is Grey London. But you do happen to have a city called London in all of these, and Kel, who is our traveler, is able to travel around. And it's very interesting. I really liked it. People talk about V.E. Schwab having like a vibe to her writing, like very atmospheric, and I think that's very true. I really enjoyed her main character Kel, as well as his interactions with Delilah Bard, who is from Grey London, a very rare magic user. Grey London is modeled after UK's London. All right, so it's kind of our world where there's little to no magic, so it's very rare to find a magic user, and Delilah Bard is from Grey London. You also have White London, which is probably not the London you want to be a part of. It's kind of cutthroat there. So in our first book, we have kind of our main villains that are in White London. It's very, very dark. Magic is there, but it's like you have to take it. It's very unpleasant. We also have somebody who can travel to the different Londons, who is from White London, and he's doing everything he possibly can to be able to save his homeland, or White London. So we're going to see that he's going to play a very important role in these books. And then we also have Black London. Black London's cut off. Nobody lives there. It is a place where magic kind of corrupted itself, and so it's been cut off. So we don't travel to Black London, although we're going to find out in these books that a little piece of Black London is going to come and make its presence known in our other Londons. And then we have Red London, and Red London is where our main character Kel is from. And Red London is a place where life and magic go hand in hand. And we spend the majority of our time in these books in Red London. So we have this kind of multi-dimensional traveling happening. It was very, very inventive. Very interesting. What an interesting, cool concept. V. Schwab comes up with like just the most bizarre stories that I don't know where they come from, and I think that it's just fascinating, and I like to be able to visit the worlds she creates. And so I highly recommend A Darker Shade of Magic, this trilogy. It was just really phenomenal. V. Schwab's a great writer. She writes characters very well. I know some people find Delilah Bard a little irritating. She's pretty brash for a character. I quite enjoyed Delilah Bard. I like Kel. I like their interactions together. How they developed it seemed very natural that these two people would be drawn to each other. And so I enjoyed that aspect. But overall, our conflicts that we have in here are really great. I do think that the second book stands out, I think, from the other two, where it's like a contest of magic that's happening. So it seems almost less serious than the first and third book. But I still really, really enjoyed it because we see so much of Delilah Bard in that second book. So I highly recommend The Darker Shade of Magic trilogy. If you have not checked these out, please do so. Very, very good. Very, very fast reads. I zipped through these in like a couple of weeks. And then the other books that I started, I haven't finished the trilogy, is Joe Abercrombie's, what is call these? They're the they are called something together, and now I've forgotten what they're called together. But our first book is The Blade Itself. So it's the Blade Itself trilogy. Oh, it's the First Law trilogy. There it is. First Law trilogy. Sorry about that. And I finished the first book, The Blade Itself. I am currently reading the second book, which is Before They Are Hanged. And then we have the third book, which is Last Argument of Kings. I have not touched this one yet. I do have it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the premise and my overall thoughts about Joe Abercrombie's writing style. He's very dense. Not that he's dense himself, but his writing style is very dense. There's a lot of kind of minute details in his books that are really interesting. I wouldn't say that it's a fast read, because it's one of those where, you know, if you're reading something that's like YA or I can't compare it to Robin Hobb, because Robin Hobb is kind of a similar writer where there's just so much information being presented, and it could be like a look, a grimace, anything, and you have to read every single word. So sometimes it can slow down the reading process a little bit because you want to make sure you didn't miss anything. And so I do enjoy his books. They're very in-depth. You're in it. You're with these characters. You want to know what's going to happen. There's a lot of politics involved in here. There are some standout characters. We follow, in the first book, primarily 3 characters. We have Logan, who is like a barbarian, one of the Northmen. And then we have Jezel, or Luther. Luther is his last name. And he's kind of, he's training to become like he's a sword fighter. And he's from a really wealthy family. He's probably the character you don't really like to spend a whole lot of time with, because he's just kind of egotistical. You do see glimpses of perhaps he could become something greater than he is if he would kind of stand up and realize things about himself. So I'm looking forward to his character development, because there's certainly a lot of development that needs to happen. And then we also have Glocta, who is the Inquisitor. So he's kind of a torturer, and he's being kind of manipulated a little bit in the first book to overthrow a powerful merchant sect in this government system. And he is somebody who faced tremendous torture himself during the war. And so his physiological symptoms are discussed heavily, that he just lives with daily pain. And he's incredibly intelligent, and you really see that. And he was probably like one of the most interesting characters. I think him and Logan are definitely the ones that I like to pay the most time with. You have some other characters that come around in this first book that are really, really interesting as well. Like I said, the first book really, I think, kind of sets up this world. There's no real conclusion to the first book. There are just kind of more character reveals that happen, and that we're kind of seeing these pieces on the chessboard being moved around for further, more in-depth, immersive plot. So they're very plot heavy, but you kind of want to know what's happening. There's like holy figures. There's this war against the Northmen. Are we fighting who we need to fight? Is there another bigger baddie? We don't really know. So that's kind of where I am with this book. So we have some of the characters coming together, where we've had them kind of on these separate journeys in the first book. Everything's starting to come together. I'm really looking forward to seeing more and more of these characters interact with each other. I'm very much looking forward to that. Now in this first one, you had what's his face, Luther, there it is, and Glocta interact in this one, which is hilarious, because Glocta just does not enjoy that kid. All right, does not like him at all, hopes he dies pretty much. So his interpretation of these events are quite humorous. There is a lot of humor in these. It's a dry, sarcastic kind of humor, very dry wit, which I really appreciate. So I'm enjoying Joe Abercrombie overall as a writer. So I'm very interested to see how everything progresses in the second and then third book. So that's where I'm heading into kind of the beginning of June, and before I go on my big trip. And so I just wanted to kind of share with you about these. I will kind of give you another update when I've finished the series, just how I felt about it overall. But so far, I'm very much enjoying the process. I'm very much enjoying his writing and the characters that he's created, and I'm looking forward to more and more of their stories kind of coming together. I just talked about 3 of the characters. There are many more, and I just want to see all of them start interacting together. And I think it's going to be really fun. So please let me know down in the comments what you've been reading. And thanks so much for hanging out with me. And I look forward to seeing you